Okay, I thought I'd make a video today about quick selects. I don't think I've ever seen people actually talking about this before, so I thought I'd make a video about it and the way I use quick selects and the way I've found now to use quick selects here on the remote, these 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons, to really get exactly what you want. So I've always used quick selects, even on my old X6500H, because it can remember the sound modes that you're in for that specific input. Say, like I've always put Blu-ray on, say, number 4, and generally speaking my Blu-ray input is for surround sound stuff. It's not for stereo or anything like that. So most of the modes that come on from, say, stereo, things that are in PCM, say 2.0, will still read Dolby Surround. And one of the reasons for that is because if you had a movie that was in, say, mono, or had 2.0 soundtrack, whatever, an older movie, you still want dialogue to come out of the center channel. So once those settings have been applied to that input before any saves are made, and then you'd say go to, say, DTS. So instead of DTS, you can choose, say, DTS plus surround, or just DTS 5.1, what is ever on the disc. You can choose whichever one you want to go to, and once you've chosen, you can hold the, say, number 4 button down, and it would remember that now. So if you put, say, a 5.1 soundtrack on again, and you've pressed number 4 to actually go to that input and the things have been saved, it will play 5.1 soundtracks in 5.1, not 5.1 plus surround. So that's really how I've used it. And then, say, some of my other inputs are more dedicated. So my CD player would be dedicated to, say, number 1. And I mean, in all fairness, there isn't a lot of customization I need to do on that. But instead of using, say, the inputs like actually up here, I actually don't use these. It's very rare I actually use these. Even on both receivers, I don't. I normally just quick select each one, and I remember, like, so downstairs, my number 1 is my Roku, TV is number 2, Xbox is number 3, my Blu-ray player is number 4. So it's just, that's how it is. And like, say, the Blu-ray player downstairs is like, say, 4 dB louder than, say, TV, right? So when you turn on number 4 or press number 4, you can lower the volume. It saves volumes, it saves everything. It saves the sound modes. There's so much it saves, but you don't really know what it saves. Like on, say, an X6500H, you just have to kind of know, like, oh, it was saving this as well. So, you know, so. But now on the the Denon A1H, or at least the new receivers, my assumption here is it's the 2024 plus receivers, maybe 2023. The ones that had the new graphic interface update. I assume it's those. I assume it's not just mine, like on a flagship, like, because it's not. I can't imagine it would take a lot of processing power to actually, like, do this. But one of the reasons why having quick selects also is nice is, say here as well, like when you press the options button on a Denon Marantz remote, you now have access to actual channel levels, and these can be adjusted even after a calibration from Multi-EQX or Acoustica, if people are using OCAs at Acoustica as well. Even though there's specific trims being used on those apps, it doesn't matter, because when you use them here, this gets applied afterwards. This exactly gets applied afterwards. So my 2-channel setting, I'm either a bass head, or I don't know how people listen to stereo music without plus 10 bass, essentially. So instead of putting it into the woofers, I just put negative volume into the left and the right channels, save it, and that's it. one of the reasons well, I'll show you what I was doing on the Denon, on the A1H here, and all of my other receivers for stereo music was, so you go into 2-channel playback, and instead of this saying auto, you would then switch to manual. This puts it in manual mode, and what that does is, if you're coming from auto to manual, it essentially copies the settings that are existing already. The problem is with this is, I just discovered that if you've made very different or very specific distance changes in, say, a program like Acoustica, which actually completely changes distances now, versus, say, Odyssey, this doesn't actually get applied to this. Now this is using, say, the receiver's 2.75 meters rule and the 2.77 meter rule instead of, say, Acoustica's. And Acoustica's could be squashed or extended. I don't know what it's doing, but with Acoustica you get more distance out of the app than the receiver will actually allow. So as soon as you go to this, you kind of destroy that. Another thing is with the volumes. I'm not too sure on the volumes. I'm not 100% on the volumes, but in any case, Acoustica and Multi-EQX use what's known as precise trims, which means that information can exist inside the 0.5 clicks of a Denon Marantz receiver or any other receiver that has a 0.5 increase. So if you lower the volume here on the channels, they're at 0.5 increments. So this is going down 4, so 4.5, 5. So now this turns into a 0.5 system, whereas before with Multi-EQX and Acoustica, you have absolute exact volumes, so 4.35, right? You can be very specific, or 6.6, right? You can do things like that, and on the receiver it will report that it is either a 0.5 or a 0 on the end, but that essentially metadata exists within that. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I found out very quickly using Acoustica that you couldn't now use manual custom 2-channel mode, essentially, because it changes the timing of your front, left and right speakers in relation now to your subwoofer. So, and I heard the difference significantly. I went from manual to auto, and once you went back to auto, the bass just tightened up. Everything was as it should be. It was synced perfectly. And then when you went to manual, the timing was different. So on this screen, I don't think the subwoofer itself gets pulled into the distance change. It is only the distance change from, say, the front left and, say, the front right, and now you have the volume differences now as well, which now gets set to a 0.5 system. So the only reason I found this out is because I was testing at LFE plus main mode with Acoustica and found that, whoa, the sound is very different between auto and manual, even at the same volume. So I went back to this mode now of auto, but the problem is with that, what I was using manual for was to essentially get 0.1 levels of bass back. So I was setting, like, say, my front left and front right, so to say -10, right, on the actual channels. And the reason I do that is because the bass levels of music almost practically mirror the bass levels of, say, a movie. So for me, going from a movie that is like Dune 2 levels of bass to music that is literally 10 dB lower in bass just does not sound good. Like, you're missing all of that bass. And I think this bass discrepancy only exists on receivers with 0.1 channels. Once you go to a dedicated processor, a stereo processor, which I've heard at, like, say, trade shows and things like that, I don't think you have this problem, this 10 dB discrepancy problem. So this is me, for me, why I do it. And to me, that's when I put the negative 10 dB in, to me, that's exactly how music should sound. So, but unfortunately, you can't do that anymore because I want to keep the timing correct for everything. And in all fairness, now even going back to if I did a calibration with multi-EQX here, it's the same thing. The distance, actually the distances should be the same. They should be because they get mirrored from this app to here. So it wasn't such a big deal. It was probably just only affecting the actual volumes here. But in any case, what I did was I knew you could customize the quick selects on this new receiver. I just didn't really know like how to do it. So basically, this is what I've done. Is you can come here to quick selects and you can actually customize these, like every single part of it. Now here, this is my Denon 6500H. If you go to general, you do the same thing. You can rename the quick selects, but that's it. That's you don't have access to anything else. You can't actually customize the quick selects. And I because I've been so used to the X6500H, I kind of glazed over this when I first had the receiver. I didn't really. I was like, you can. I was like, because I was like, I didn't know you could do this. I thought my old receiver had it too, and it's like just something I missed over the years. So you can actually customize these now, and I've done something pretty interesting. And I've disabled essentially a lot of them in what they do. So let's just go to number 4 though, for instance. Like number 4 is my Blu-ray input on on all my receivers. I want it to remember the input, right? That would make sense. So it would remember the Blu-ray input. It would remember the volume. It would also remember the sound mode. It remembers the channel levels. I disable Odyssey parameters now, and the reason is because with programs like Acoustica, everything gets sent now to flat, and reference is night mode. All of my quick selects remembered reference previously because I used to use multi-EQX here and do custom calibrations with multi-EQX. So I put everything on reference. So every single input got saved to reference. Now then, with Odyssey, everything went to flat. All of my inputs, all of my quick selects were saved to reference. And I was just like, so wait, I can disable this, put every single input already to flat. Even when you save it now, it doesn't remember the Odyssey parameters. What it does is it just leaves that information entirely, and it's whatever you set it on. So if your input is set to flat, that's it. It will be set to flat, and it never gets remembered in the quick select. So I found that was actually the best way to deal with it. Sure, you could go into all of the inputs and remember each one on flat, but I didn't want that to just get in the way. I'm like, if everything's going to be on flat anyway, then I don't want this remembered at all. The restorer is where you're in, say, 2-channel mode, and it's either analog or it is low bitrate. Not low bitrate, but say uncompressed audio. You can turn restorer on, and it remembers that on or off. Now, I think my Denon X6500H used to remember it as well, but again, you can control this. So I had to remember to turn that off, things like that. I'm not, to be honest, in all fairness, I don't know. Now, HDMI video output, I think it's like things like remembering that it's in movie mode and using, say, HDMI 1 instead of auto both and things like that. I think that's what it is. I just enabled that just in case because, I don't want it to like mess with things. Same with video content and playback content. Because this is Blu-ray. Now, admittedly, I'm only using the Blu-ray input for audio because I split audio to the receiver and video to the TV. But when it comes to like the actual, you know, playing movies and things, I don't want things to kind of get in the way of this. So now what I do is, again, because of Acoustica, is I want it to remember the speaker presets. So, and the reason for me is why that is because I use two calibrations for one for a movie target, which is essentially a Harman target curve for movies. But when I listen to music, I don't want music to have a Harman target curve, so I use preset 2 for that. So preset 2 is music, preset 1 is movies. And yes, when I press, say, the Blu-ray input, I know on the Blu-ray input that is pretty much a dedicated input for movies, so it just has that. Music is on my, say, my other 4K player, my Revon player, like that plays Dolby Atmos music. So number 3 on this receiver is for that, and that deals with anything with Dolby Atmos and things like that, and just music from there. So I mean, you could again play music, Dolby Atmos music from my Panasonic UB9000, true, but you'd obviously have to then save it to the other preset and things like that, which again you can do. It's just I have 2 4K players and I've just kind of set them up this way. I don't mind doing that. I actually don't mind using the Revon for music and say the Panasonic for movies. So my biggest problem at the start was trying to figure out how to make this work now that I've turned off custom, and I need to now lower my channels, right? I need to lower my channels for stereo music by 10 dB. But then if I switch inputs, would the input still remember like that I have negative 10 dB on there? So what I did was I essentially made some fail safes going into these. So here's what I actually do to set these up. So Quick Select 4 is the Blu-ray movie input. Quick Select 3 is essentially the music, digital music input, I guess we could say, which is like Dolby Atmos and things like that, 5.1 music. We can even play SACDs on the Revon. So it's just pretty much dedicated to music, but this is more likely though dedicated to multi-channel music. So that's how I did the number 4 and number 3 selects. Now what I did with these, and I'll start with number 1 first, is I disabled the source. So when I press 1, it does not change the source. When I press 1, it does not remember the volume. So the volume is whatever it's at now. It does remember the sound mode. And the reason I want that is because number 1 for me is a stereo music input source. And the reason why this is now really cool is because I can use this on any single input. So let's just go through it real quick. So it remembers the sound mode and it remembers the channel level, right? That's it. Everything else is disabled. And the only thing it does remember is the speaker preset, which for 2-channel music, again, this would be music, so it would remember that it is preset 2, right? So the only thing that Quick Select 1 does is it remembers the sound mode, which would automatically switch to stereo. Even if it was surround sound information coming through, it would automatically switch to stereo. And it would remember the channel levels, right? It would remember those. Now, when this says disabled, it doesn't mean that the input or the source itself or the volume itself is disabled. I'm very literal in the way I read things. Like, I'm like, wait, it's going to disable these? No, it doesn't. It just doesn't use that information anymore as an auto save. It only saves what is enabled. So basically what I do is I set my input to stereo. So anything that gets played, I check a few sources, that anytime information is coming through this, whether it is from 5.1, whether it is whatever, it will always switch to just stereo, left and right stereo only. Then what I do is I use a negative 10 dB offset on the left and the right channels, save it as quick select 1, and now what you can do is you can use this for stereo music setup on any input now. So if you go to, if I press cable sat here, if I press that, and I think cable sat on here might be a Roku for me. I think it might be. So again, I almost don't remember the inputs. I only really remember the quick selects. But right now it doesn't matter. Let's say I wanted to listen to music on cable sat, and I've never listened to that input before. It doesn't matter because music can be playing. I press number 1, it would put it into stereo mode, and it would put the negative 10 dB offset onto those channels, right? Now, for instance, let's say I was listening to music on the Blu-ray input. I switched to the Blu-ray input here. I could just press quick select 1, and now my music would be playing perfectly on the Blu-ray input. So that is the benefit of doing this. Now, what I did was as well is, if this is just a stereo input with a negative 10 dB bias, I need a quick way to get back to normal settings, right? For any input. So with quick select 2, I mirrored the settings of quick select 1, which again does not remember inputs, master volume, or anything like that. It remembers the sound mode. So with quick select 2, the sound mode, I now want this to be a multi-channel setup. So I want it to remember now that the sound mode would put things into surround sound. So you can do that here. It will save that, but obviously the channel that you are using, let's say PCM 2.0 came on, it should not switch to stereo. What you want to do is switch it to surround sound and now save it on your quick select, so it will save as surround sound. Now the channel levels I've enabled as well, because so what this does is it puts the channels back to 0 on the stereo left and right channels. Everything is that way. Now me personally, I use a rear surround ATMOS height bias of +4 dB. So what that is any speaker that is behind me has a +4 dB bias on it for surround sound music and for movies. The reason is because if you use the Spiers and MUNSIL demo disc, or you use the Spatial Audio Calibration Toolkit disc on Blu-ray, what they have tools that make sound move around your system. Why these are really good is because even after a calibration with multi-EQX, you've done a calibration with Acoustica, and everything is set to the perfect volume. Like let's say you've even done it manual. You've set all of your channels like with an old Radio Shack like microphone. If anyone remembers those, all your channels are set to 75 dB, right? Great. Everything's balanced. Now you hear like you're listening to you're watching a movie, and you're like, somehow I don't hear my surround sounds like as loud as I would expect them to be. Why is that? At least that's how I've always felt in every single movie room and home theatre space I've ever been in. And they have tones that literally move sound from the front soundstage to the rear, and you can actually hear with your ears, oh wow, that when that sound goes around you like that, you lose volume. I'm like, it sounds way lower. And again, it's because of your ears. I personally don't care that is the way our ears naturally hear and things like that. And a 75 dB sound there in front of you is louder than it is behind you because your ears get in the way. The only way that sound behind you would be 75 dB or sound correct to your ears is to turn your head. But you don't do that when you're watching a movie. So I need sound to be balanced. When a sound goes around me like that, you should not be able to, in my opinion, you should not be able to tell the difference between the sound going all the way around you. Wherever that sound moves, to your ears, it should sound equal the entire way around. Imagine having a sound that was loud here and then literally softened back here, as though you can't hear it. Sure, you hear that way in real life, right? But I don't care. For me, this is a surround sound system that should be equal volume to your ears and the way you hear. It might be different for your ears, right? I use a +4 dB bias. For you, it could be +2. But what I have noticed is I've also done this test without my cushions in the way. And even without the cushions in the way, like nothing in the way of line of sight of the actual speakers themselves, even like that, it's still 2 dB. So even when you set everything to 75 dB and everything's perfect, with either you've done it manually, or you've done it manually in Multi-EQX, or Acoustica itself has done the calibration for you, at minimum you still need a +2 dB bias on any speaker that is behind you, at least from my ears. So that's what I've done. And this to me makes surround sound movies sound so much better. Like when sounds move around, you're in it. You are really in it. Anyway, you can save the channel levels as well. So number 2 quick select puts my front sound stage all set to 0 and all of my rears to 4 dB louder, and you can go essentially from input to input. So TV audio typically is where I listen to, say, Spotify music or something like that, or you can get it sent to is it on here? It would be through HEOS. Yeah, if I send say Spotify to the receiver, when I press TV audio, it actually automatically switches to stereo, because I'm not sure if you can send surround sound more than that through there. So the input, even the input itself, just remembers, hey, that was a stereo input. If the 10 dB bias of the left and right didn't get applied, I can just press number 1. Hey, now that's a music. Now that's for music. I never use the tuner, right? I never listen to radio or anything on these receivers. If I did, and again, because this has never been used before, you could just switch to that. If it already wasn't in stereo, you could just press number 1 and it would already do it. So yeah, I mean, this to me like kind of fixed my problems where, I mean, to be honest, in all honesty, I don't need to remember Blu-ray or Dolby Atmos music on my Revon either now. Like, so I have a Panasonic UB9000 for the Blu-ray, a 4K player, and a Revon X200 for the for music. You actually don't need to use these either. You could now just go back to pressing inputs. What are you listening to? I'm listening to surround sound 5.1 music, something that is not stereo. Then you would press number 2. It would remember all of your sound modes. It would remember, you know what I mean? It's that easy. Oh, this is just 2-channel music. Okay, you press number 1. My CD player, SA CD player, I've got a Technics as well, which uses like analog XLR outs. So I switch to CD, you press number 1, because it remembers all of those modes specifically for stereo. So, like I said, I didn't quite know how I was going to set this up from, say, a custom 2-channel setup where I was doing it all manually, to now actually just being able to set this up, and it literally is just offsets on the inputs themselves, which don't have an effect on the actual calibration. So if, and again, for one of the reasons why you want to do it this way, like this way, with the channel level adjusts, here, you always want to adjust volumes here now. And to be honest, on any calibration you do, you no longer want to use levels here. You can, on the web interface here, you can view this. You're a viewer here, right? So you're not, once you come in here though on the remote, you start the test tones, and every single one of these gets reset to -3, -1.5, -2.5, -1. But this information here carries biases, or no, that's not the word, metadata. So this +1 here with Acoustica or a multi-EQX calibration here could be 1.25 dB, all right? But the receiver shows it as 1 dB. So it carries information in there, and as soon as you come into here, it puts the real values in of 1 dB. So that 1.2, whatever information was in here gets erased. Yes, it is small, but this is still the whole precise. This is the reason of using precise trims, is to get volume levels absolute. So again, you break that. Same with distances. Again, here on the web interface, I am a viewer of this. Once you come in here though, on the receiver, you break all of this. All of this gets broken. So again, this is another reason why you want to do everything on the channel level adjust by pressing option. This options button. I think all Denon remotes have this. This is where you want to do it. So, yeah, pretty simple video here, but once I got this working, like last week, again, I've had I've had the Denon A1H for a while now. Felt as though I haven't had to use these quick selects. Just really haven't needed. I mean, I use the quick selects, but I haven't used it in this way specifically. I didn't know how much customization we actually had from this, but the fact that, I mean, you could turn everything off apart from one thing, right? That's which is also just awesome. The fact that you can do this. I wish they actually added this to the X6500H, but it's, in all fairness, it's probably not a big deal because I use 4 inputs downstairs. It's a 3.2 setup, and how I've actually got it set up is actually to use center spread, and all my devices actually only output PCM. So I've actually done the same thing. I've actually put a negative 10 dB bias on the left, center, and the right channels, and then you don't have any issues with, hey, this is a 0.1 soundtrack with massive levels of bass, and then this is just stereo, which is 10 dB lower. So that was something I was testing downstairs as well, and to me it works excellently. And again, this is just a simple, I'm not going too crazy about the setup downstairs. I wanted to make sure something worked, so you don't have to change, you know, it's not changing sound modes and things like that. I don't want that downstairs. I just don't want it. You know, I'm watching the news, I'm watching, you know, YouTube videos, I'm watching anything like on a Roku and things like that. I don't want that level of, that level I want up here, like where everything is totally configured correctly, because I have a surround sound system downstairs where it's like it doesn't need that. So essentially I'm just using quick selects downstairs as to get the volumes correct, make sure everything is in actually surround sound mode, so I can use all 3 speakers and it remembers all of it. So yeah, the quick selects downstairs are not as powerful as on these new receivers with the amount of customizations you can do with them. Yeah, I made this video again because I don't think I've seen videos of people talking about this and the things that you can actually do with quick selects, because you yourself might be like, oh wow, that's cool, that what mode, let's say the restorer, you didn't know, you left this restorer on one time on low, and somehow you saved that input to your number 1 or number 2, and you didn't know, you actually didn't know. This restorer will only come on, I believe in stereo mode. It could also be low bitrate, but at least now there's a way of dealing with I think pretty much all of these things. Another is the all zone stereo, where it puts essentially stereo into every single speaker. If you wanted to, you could have an all zone stereo setup where, hey, number 4 is my sports mode, right? Where I want sounds coming out of every single speaker, right? You can have a setup for that. Plus you could, well, it would remember the sound mode, which should then remember the the 7-channel setup or the stereo channel setup. It would remember levels as well, but it wouldn't change the input. So, there's a lot of things you can do here. So you can do very specific things, like this is my input and these will be my levels and everything like that. Or you can do general setups of, this is my music setup for stereo and I can apply this to any input. And then this other one is just for multi-channel music, which again, I can apply this now to any input. So it doesn't need any previous work to set that input up. You've already got it here on number 1 and number 2. So that's how I'm using one of the reasons, again, why I'm using this is because I have multiple music sources. So it could be coming from TV audio, which is eARC coming back through the HDMI. It could be coming from the Roku. It could be coming from... it could go through, say, Spotify through the receiver, right, through HEOS. So there's lots of different ways I can play music now, and it's not tied to my settings here are not tied to an input, which is really, really nice. As soon as you disable the input, I disable the master volume just because I don't want it messing with that. I don't want it messing with that at all, to be honest. So yeah. Quick selects. Do you use them on do you use them on a Denon remote? And did you know that the new receivers can actually, at least I think most of the new, I hope again this is not just on the high-end receivers. I'm assuming this is from the 2023-4 models and above. But if they're not, let me know, because I just assume that they would be. So again, anything with a new interface, I assume got these changes. So, but yeah, this is pretty cool. And this essentially fixes my 2-channel and multi-channel modes on quick select buttons, just instantly switching. It's great. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Bye.